we're going to talk about Help to Buy now. The government is apparently considering axing the scheme after research published said that it may be helping wealthier households rather than those on lower incomes. Well, with us now is research economist at the Adam Smith Institute, Sam Dumitriu. Good morning to you, Sam.
Good morning.
So it seems that this scheme was set up to try and help younger people get on the property ladder, those from low incomes, but it's not doing that.
Well, it's not a particularly well-targeted scheme, so generally we think that when government gets involved it should help the people who are least well off. What actually happens in the case of Help to Buy is about 40% of people who take advantage of the scheme are earning over £50,000 a year, and there's people earning over £100,000 a year benefiting from the scheme. So I don't think it actually helps the people that the government should be helping, but I think there's a broader problem, and I think that's because it essentially is a demand solution, and what we essentially have is a supply problem with housing. We're not building enough houses because we have restrictive planning policies, but if you simply add more demand without doing anything about supply, then the result will be higher house prices, and it will actually hurt a lot of people who want to be first-time buyers. The people who benefit the most will probably be large house builders, and that's why I think you've actually seen some of them come out very strongly against this announcement.
Are these figures slightly skewed towards those buying in cities? Because, of course, property there is very expensive and very in demand. And is that where most of the Help to Buy schemes are being taken up? Because people, even if you are on £50,000 a year in London, it's impossible to get on the housing market, the housing ladder.
Typically, the people in London who take advantage of the scheme are on higher incomes, and they can actually access slightly larger help on their deposit. Now, again, I don't think this is a particularly good way of dealing with the problem, because essentially you're adding more demand to an already overheating housing market, and what you want to do is you want to increase the supply.
So what would you like to see this scheme replaced by? Because, you know, the policy does come to an end in 2021, and it's those who are on lower incomes that want to get on the housing ladder, that want access to that market. What do you think would be a suitable replacement?
I think ultimately what has to be done is you have to increase the amount of houses being built, and the way to do that is to look at parts of the green belt that aren't very green and are by train stations. So we could essentially meet London's housing needs for the next decade or so if we built within the 15 minutes from a train station that can get you into central London within 45 minutes. Those are the places where we should be looking at building. We should also be making it easier to build within the centre of London. We should give streets the option to effectively all grant themselves permitted development rights all at once. So essentially everyone on the street could potentially even double their property value, but at the same time a lot more units could be made available potentially for the rental market as well, pushing pressure down and making it easier to actually get a deposit together in the first place.
Because what you feel we're seeing now is people are sort of upsizing on their homes rather than getting these small starter homes that you envisage when you think of the Help to Buy scheme.
Yeah, well, there's some evidence that people are actually using the scheme to upsize rather than to actually get their foot on the housing ladder with a small house, is what you'd expect this scheme to sort of be working towards. So, I mean, that's definitely not what it was designed to do. But I think there is a risk that if they merely try and save the scheme but add all these restrictions, say you only households earning less than £60,000, you can't do it for this or that reason, you might create some perverse incentives where people are just on the verge of the threshold and, you know, refusing pay rises so they can get a cheap deposit and then getting them a bit later. So you might see all sorts of funny sort of stuff going on if that's the case.
OK, interesting. And Sam Dumitriu there from the Adam Smith Institute talking about the Help to Buy scheme, which could be scrapped by the government. Thank you very much for coming to talk to us about that.